what are some common traps that we can fall into when it comes to pride? I know that you share some personal examples in your book.
Yes, I do, and there's many, many more that that I could have shared. I'll give you two, and I think it's helpful when we're thinking about pride to recognize we oftentimes can think of pride in terms of, if we were to use the language of modern psychology, we think of it as high self-esteem, having this over self-confidence and self-assertiveness and this, that, and the other. We meet people like that are overly abrasive and just really think a lot of themselves, and we think, man, that person is proud. But pride can manifest itself equally in what is oftentimes called low self-esteem. And so I'll just give you two examples, one as it manifests itself in my own life with regards to high self-esteem, and the other low self-esteem. And I find in my own soul that it's not, that for me, the struggle with those two things is, it's not like, oh, I only struggle with high self-esteem or I only struggle with low self-esteem. I find it's just a fluctuating back and forth between the two when I'm not being humble. And so in our consumeristic age, it's very common for people in America and in the UK, I would presume as well, to root our identity in stuff, in the things that we have, and to either think ourselves really great because of that, or to be really down on ourselves because of that. Either way, it's an idolatrous self-perception, rooting our identity in the creation instead of in the creator. So with regards to high self-esteem, one of the things that the Lord showed me that I write about in the book, quite embarrassing actually, is with regards to my car. Now, I don't drive a super fancy car. It's not like I'm cruising around in a Maserati or anything like that. Fairly simple car, but it's a newer car, and it's a reliable car. And I found myself a couple years ago, I was driving on the highway, and I was passing this car, much older than mine, much rustier than mine, much slower than mine. And I realized in the moment something strange was going on in my heart, that I had this subtle sense of superiority rising up within me. Ultimately, and this is crazy, but ultimately because the piece of metal that I was sitting in was newer, was faster, it was shinier. And so I was subtly operating under the conviction that I was more of a person, that I had more worth, more value, because of the vehicle that I happened to be driving and happened to own. So high self-esteem there brought about from an idolatrous self-perception, rooting my identity in creation. The low self-esteem. So ever since we moved to Chattanooga, I and my family, we've lived in a home up on Lookout Mountain, and it's less than an ideal home in a number of different ways. It's not impressive. It's not pretty in any regard. It's a double wide trailer essentially. and when we first moved in and started having people over, for those first number of months, I would struggle every time a new person was coming over to our home. What are they going to think? What are they going to think of the house? What are they going to think of me because of my house? And I just began to recognize I'm finding my sense of worth, my sense of value in the home that I live in. Now, the reality is none of my people care what kind of home I live in. They're coming to spend time with my family and to enjoy fellowship, not because we have some spectacular house. But for me, it was an idolatrous identity, and the Lord very graciously showed that to me and continues to work in me through that. So yeah, there are just any number of ways that pride can work itself out in our lives. But those are two examples from my own walk.
Yeah.